Welcome to the Biz Easy podcast, where small business is simplified for greater results. Brought to you by Resources and Development. Go to www.resources-development.com for help in taking your business to the next level. And now, help me welcome the host of the Biz Easy podcast, Steve McCrillis.
Welcome to the Biz Easy podcast, where small business is simplified for greater results. Coming to you today from the Beehive State, and not from a state of confusion, but rather a state of clarity for all business owners, as we're here to make your business more simple and more biz easy. Steve McCrillis has some thoughts he'd like to share, so I'm playing host today. Hey, Steve, before you get started, I want to ask you, do you know when a joke is ready to be a dad joke?
Oh, dare I ask?
When it's full grown.
Yeah, grown. Nice.
I'm Skip Williams. I'm having fun. Steve, you having fun?
Always having fun.
All right. What's our topic today?
So today we're talking about a topic that I discuss with nearly every client I meet, and for the most part, every small business owner I meet. It's called working on your business versus working in your business. Now, to the casual reader, this title might seem a bit odd. To anyone who has been involved in services provided to small and medium-sized business owners, this concept is quite clear. Moreover, the concept is critical for a business owner to understand his or her most significant role in their own business. For clarification, you may have heard the title owner-operator when identifying a small business owner. Now, this simply means that he/she not only owns the business, but is the person responsible for performing the work. Best example, Gus's Landscape Service, where Gus owns the business and does all the grass cutting himself. Business ownership must always start here. As business owners grow their business, they will diversify, segregate, and delegate various responsibilities within the structure of the work performance. When Gus decides that he has more work than he can handle, he hires his son Buster, whereafter they both are doing the work. Now, as the business grows even further with more landscape jobs, Buster's friend Billy joins the team. Skipping forward, Gus now has 20 employees, all out in the field with 4 trucks, trailers, and equipment, while Gus's wife Glenda is at home dutifully billing customers, preparing paychecks, and paying bills. Once a business owner like Gus manages his business to hit roughly about $1 million in revenue, most often less, Glenda realizes that the company is making more money each month, but to her and Gus's surprise, they are keeping less. Sound familiar? Well, sure, Gus isn't working the long hours he used to, but there's less money in the bank, less money to pay bills, less money to pay for repairs, and less money in their pocket as the owners of this business. So what happened? How is this possible? What now?
So you're saying when the business owners tend to get caught in this loop of making money when they're doing all the work and losing money when they have employees doing the work? Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying, because they're working in the business. So what has to happen? Let's move on. This quick missive is a description of the typical progression of a small business owner. At this point, a decision must be made. In my experience, the business owner who has not recognized the relationship between working in the business versus working on the business, he will typically decide to dial it back, reduce his staff, sell off a truck, trailer or two, and jump back up in the truck and work more hours because he was making more money when he was doing more work. And not surprisingly, a business owner may find himself in this exact same situation 2 and 3 times in his career. High volume, low income activity to low volume, high income activity without realizing that he, yes, Gus, the owner, is the instigator of this reoccurring paradox. Now, unfortunately, by the time that Gus has come to this realization, he's now in his 50s and doesn't have the physical wherewithal to work long hours anymore. Gus never took the time to learn the value of systems dependency versus people dependency, his current situation. More accurately, we can now circle back to Gus working in the business versus working on the business.
I used to see this in the spa industry all the time, Steve, when a person went from a sole practitioner to having their own store or spa. And it would take them 5 or 6 therapists doing what they were doing by themselves to make the same net profit.
Yep.
So if
I'm telling.
so I'm sorry. So if the cost of labor is causing them to lose money, how do they ever get bigger?
Well, I tell every small business owner, every large business in the world started small, just like you. So how do some of them grow and some of them don't? Anyone in the business advisor industry has had the good fortune of meeting a business owner like Gus, and who understands the simple concept of on versus in, would be delighted to walk Gus through a series of questions that would bring enlightenment to his situation. The most fundamental tenets of business operation are all absent when this situation occurs, and the remedy can make the most remarkable changes towards success when they are understood and implemented. For example, questions I used to typically ask. Well, how do you track your employee productivity, to your point? How do you schedule your workflow for optimal use of travel time and equipment? How do you price your service as to be competitive and still cover your costs? Does your pricing cover your overhead burden? Are you managing cash flow effectively to purchase equipment as needed? Does your staff have the same objectives for performance as you do? What is the compelling offer that you have that makes you a better choice for a client? How do you measure all those cost variables in real time? How much should you be making? All these questions are come up with every client, and can you imagine the kind of responses that you get?
Yeah, I see business owners all the time when they get into that situation, they're blaming the employees, right? As opposed to solving the problem.
Right.
And I think it's important to have metrics to analyze and adjust the business accordingly. And to your point about the compelling offer to the customer, by having employees and 4 trucks, how does that make you better? How does that give you a better offering for your customers as opposed to being a one-man band? So how does the business owner make this transition from the one-man band to the manager, Steve?
Well, it's a very important question. I would argue that if Gus's company is making more and keeping less, he likely would not be able to answer any of the questions I previously asked with any degree of credibility. He knows what he knows because he has been doing the work for years and years and years. He taught his son and his staff how to do a good, maybe even a great job. But it still comes back to the most important questions. Who is managing the business? The concept, when broken down in this manner, seems easy enough, but when you're on the inside looking out, it's too easy to get crowded with the forest that the trees seem to be out of focus.
Yeah, sometimes we're too close to the problem to see it clearly. I know I've suffered from this myself. Which we really need to. Go ahead.
It's stepping back. It's looking at it from the outside. And the good fortune that I had is I came in with no preconceived notions. I didn't know much about the business. I knew what they did. I know who the players were, but I didn't know how well they were doing or how poorly they were doing. So in asking the many questions, before I even looked at a stitch of financials, I would ask him those kinds of questions. And the manner in which they would answer the question would give me an indication, is this man involved in the business or is he actually working on the business? Knowing the metrics, to your point.
Whenever I see a company in trouble, that no matter what stage of its life it's in, it boils down to 2 things. Usually it's the combination of these 2 things. It's the volume of business and it's the efficiency of the work. And if you can solve both of those problems, then you'll be fine having a team doing the work as opposed to yourself, I would think.
The content of this blog is probably one of the first ones we could have ever written, because this is what we run into most frequently, and what distinguishes somebody who really may need to dial certain things in or really take a look at what their responsibilities are. Running a business without fundamental concept of measuring workflow process, managing people for performance with cost controls, and measuring all cash in and cash out transactions without having a specific expectation for outcome can be daunting. What's that old expression? If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. This blog isn't designed to examine all the ins and outs of working on the business, but rather to be an identification of what happens when there is no distinction. Working in the business may make an owner feel all warm and fuzzy while he delights his customers. But if there's any inclination to make money so they can grow, engage the help of others, and enlarge his reach while being able to support his family, and ultimately retire, well, only he can decide if it's worth it to make the important change in his role. Becoming a businessman or woman instead of simply a business owner is a decision that each person who endeavors into working for himself must make. Should he not make that decision, the outcome will invariably be the same. The owner will be managed by the business rather than the business managed by the owner. And I think that you've seen that. We've seen that many, many times. And it really is coming to that realization. And how often do they do that?
That's right. And again, no matter what stage your business is at, this is usually at the core of why the business owner can't take their business to the next level. You know, whether that's just from one-man band to managing people, or whether that's from being citywide to statewide, whatever it is, it usually boils down to some of these components that you've talked about today, Steve. Can you make some Go ahead, I'm sorry.
You have a question for me? Perhaps it's what I was about to say.
Can you make some specific recommendations that will help business owners take the business to the next level so they can make money while working on rather than in?
Yes. Yes, I do. First of all, what you need to do is you need to get on your computer, go to resources-development.com and pick out a blog or two that sounds like it's something that is of some concern or some interest to you. Begin to understand that as this, any problem, any barrier, any obstacle that you have reached, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of business owners have come to that same obstacle, challenge, issue once before. Nothing in small business is that complicated. It's like anything else. What's that expression? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Mm-hmm. The purpose, the very mission that we set forth with setting up these podcasts, BizEasy, is exactly what we are trying to accomplish. Break these small little things down that everybody has once challenged to have to overcome and look at it piece by piece. We're not trying to teach anybody to be an accountant. We're not trying to teach anybody to get a Harvard MBA. We're not trying to teach anybody that they suddenly have to run Microsoft or Tesla or Apple. That's not what it is. Once you understand the fundamentals of your business and know the metrics, if you treasure it, you measure it. How many times have I said that in a podcast? If you treasure it, you should measure it. Once you understand how to measure your own business and how to quantify the results that you think that you deserve and you know that you can earn, then you can break them down into workable parts. Start with an annual expectation, break it down into monthly, into weekly, into daily, into hourly if you become OCD. But each and every part, each and every challenge that you reach as a small business owner can be overcome with a simple, BizEasy explanation. Now, I don't think that you can top that explanation or that recommendation. Can you, Skip?
I think that's great. To coin a phrase, the struggle is real, but it doesn't need to be, you know? And between the two of us, we've probably worked with 10,000 businesses or so. So we've seen a thing or two that the average business owner hasn't had the luxury of seeing. So reach out to the blogs for sure, but or search back through the archives on the BizEasy podcast for the same or similar topics. So,
well, I guess my advice too is don't settle for less. You don't have to settle for something that you're not happy with. I hearken people back to the original reason they got into business. When you go back and say, you know, I want to work for myself. I don't want to work for that other numbnuts. Maybe I worked for him for too long, but I know I can do it. I know I'm better than that. I just don't know this. Be aware of what you know you don't know. Do not be afraid to ask questions. I always bring up the story of one of my first businesses when I changed my entire life career. I was working, 17 years for a guy, and I knew I could do this for myself, but I was too big. I was 8 foot tall and bulletproof. I couldn't ask for help. I couldn't ask the important question. And that was a 3-year business that virtually failed. I was able to escape with barely the name and what money I put into it. But what a learning experience. And my mission, my passion is to make sure that any guy that gets or woman that gets into a business for themselves doesn't have to go through what I did, because I'd be exponentially further ahead if I didn't go through that. I would call it a 5-year learning experience.
That's right. I mean, you get caught in that loop. I always, when I struggle with a problem or whatever, I've said, listen, I know people who aren't as smart as me that have done it. So how did they do it? And sometimes you just don't know until you talk to others that have seen a few things, or just have a sounding board to work through the problem with. So yeah, reach out to whomever you have to reach out to help you solve these issues, because they don't have to be a struggle. They can. When I get
to meet small business owners in some of the events that I go to, when I offer seminars or we do some webinars and those kinds of things, once they begin to understand that we are compassionate to the plight, then they're a little less reluctant to say, there's got to be a better way. I'm doing this in billing, or I'm doing this with cost controlling, or I'm doing this with job costing, or I'm doing this with labor productivity, or I don't even know what labor productivity means. I don't even know how to schedule. I don't even know where to begin. But to become self-deprecating enough to say, I don't know that, is a show of strength, is a show of true intelligence, because recognizing your own limitations is a real key to being truly successful, because then you can overcome that. Ask questions, be curious. I hate to go Ted Lasso on you, but don't be judgmental, be curious.
A man has got to know his limitations, huh?
There you go. There you go.
Well, on that note, you want to wrap this thing up and call it a day?
As always, visit us at resources-development.com. Ask a question anonymously if you so choose. Simple question, we'll be happy to respond to it. In fact, that is where many of these blogs or these podcasts come from. Somebody asking a question. And if it doesn't answer the question, ask another one and ask another one. Yet keep asking. I had a friend who was a rabbi many years ago, and whenever he asks somebody and they say, I'm fine, it's fine, you keep asking until you get a different answer. In any event, check us out on the internet, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Well, that's a wrap.